This is George from High Tech Legion. Just because nVidia's Maxwell is still a couple of months away from coming to market with the higher end pieces doesn't mean there's nothing left new to see in the nVidia line. Now, the GTX 780 when it came out was an absolute monster and still is. However, it's been quite well known for some time that the GTX 780 had tons of headroom for overclocking and was really underutilized at its original speeds. Today we're going to take a look at the Geforce GTX 780 GHz Edition from Gigabyte, which has a higher factory overclock than any other GTX 780 we've seen come to market. Now, getting our first look at the Gigabyte GeForce GTX 780 GHz Edition, let's first take a quick look at the box. And this is going to be a really quick look. Not much going on here, and it tells you everything you need to know. GeForce GTX 780, Windforce, with a 3-fan system, 450 watts of heat dissipation, as well as a boost to 1071 megahertz. That right there, everything you need to know. You've got 780 overclocked to 1071 boost clock. It's going to be an absolute monster. 3 gigabytes of GDDR5 RAM on a 384-bit bus. So you've got some really good things going on. On the back, real quick look at the Windforce setup. You've got 2 8mm heat pipes, 4 6mm heat pipes using the triangle cool technology. Huge cooler we'll take a look at in a second. Simple box, but like I say, if you're familiar with 780, just everything you see here tells you you're in for a treat. So let's go right over to the Windforce Edition. Getting a look, as you see, it is not a small card by any stretch of the imagination. 292 millimeters from front to back. So you are going to have to make sure you have room for it in your case. Nice metal shroud with the 3 Gigabyte Windforce fans with the Windforce logo on the top and the little jut out there that we see on all the Windforce pieces. Now, moving over to the side, it does have the Gigahertz Edition, 2 8mm PCI Express, or 2 8-pin, I should say, PCI Express connectors on the side. And as you can see, the heatsink does run all the way through. It is side to side using the triangle cool technology. On the back, we've got a great looking backplate, as you see here. Full cover backplate. Going to keep the motherboard from sagging, makes it a really solid piece, and it wraps around to the side to show off that Gigahertz Edition tag right there. Now, going over to the other side, as you see, we've got our PCI Express connector, PCI Express 3.0, of course, and once again, you get a bit of a look at the heatsink. As you can see, it's really a large heatsink in there. They claim the 450 watts. Either way, you've definitely got some meat going on in there, and looking closely, you can get a look inside. You've got all those heat pipes going on in there. Like I say, 2 8mm, 4 6mm. You can see them running behind the center fan right here. Really just a meaty cooler. Triangle cool technology is also readily evident, which keeps the air flowing, more heat dissipation and better flow with less turbulence over the heatsink itself. Now, of course, on the other side, we've got our SLI connectors right here, of course, which come covered from the factory. In the back, taking a look, and got our 2 DVIs, a DVI-I and a DVI-D, both dual link, HDMI and DisplayPort as well. It is capable of 4 monitors simultaneously, so you can have a 4 display output without a problem on this card. Now, but really the big thing, like I say, we're talking about here is the overclock on here. It is overclocked to 1019 megahertz on the base clock, 1071 megahertz on the boost clock. That is a tremendous upgrade. Up from the stock 863 and 900 on the boost clock. So you're getting 171 megahertz on the boost clock and almost 160 on the base clock. That's going to make for a serious performance difference right there. Heading inside the box, not a whole lot of accessories included. You get 2 4-pin Molex, 2 8-pin PCI Express connectors, in case you don't have enough PCI Express 8 pins on your power supply. 600 watt minimum power supply is recommended. Quick start guide, as well as driver and OC Guru CD. Now, we've seen what the card looks like. We've seen what comes with it. Now let's take a look at what that card can do. Getting a look at the benchmarks, you notice we're comparing the GTX 780 GHz Edition from Gigabyte to the reference GTX 780, the natural AMD competitor, which is the 290, and that is a Sapphire Tri-X with an overclock. Now we're also comparing it to the R9 280X. Typically, I would not include that card. Obviously, it was not supposed to be at this kind of price point, but right now, with miners driving up the price of AMD cards, that card's coming in at right around $500. So it's price competitive right now, unfortunately, with the GTX 780 GHz Edition, and the 290 is actually running significantly more than the 780 GHz Edition. So taking a look first at Firestrike, obviously does very, very well, outperforms the reference card, outperforms actually everything in the test. And, you know, moving on to the Unigens, same thing. We see the GTX 780 GHz Edition, you know, just flat out outperforming, you know, everything that is in its price class. Testmark, we expect it to. AMD cards don't perform well in Testmark. Not a knock on AMD cards as much it is to say that the benchmark itself is skewed more towards nVidia cards. They do perform better. Now looking at the games, once again, the 780 GHz Edition is really dominating as far as frames per second in the gameplay right across the board. We do see, you know, of course, a couple of variations. Metro Last Light, the Sapphire 290 does have about a half a frame per second better, but that doesn't make up for the what we're seeing in all of the other games, as you see here. So really an astounding performance by the 780 GHz Edition. Moving on, as far as temperature and noise and power consumption, really not an issue at all. We expected it to be a bit of a power monger, and yeah, the system was drawing 301 watts under peak loads. But what's really nice, you take a look at the temperatures, it was peaking at about 71 degrees, and at that 71 degrees, it was remaining perfectly quiet. So really no problems with noise. The Windforce design does a really nice job. Getting a look at the included OC Guru 2 software. Very, very simple software to use, and we did use it for the overclock here. First off, first panel you see monitoring, GPU, memory, voltage. Once you hit the more button, you get up the left-hand side, GPU clock, memory clock, GPU voltage, power consumption, fan speed, and GPU temperature. Now, as you see, you do have up here, you can record and log it to a file, as well as stop the recording. Now, next, moving over, we've got the GPU clock, memory clock, all just simply keyed in, or you can raise or lower, obviously, one by one. But to make life simple, we're going to key it in. We were able to obtain what was actually 98 megahertz boost on the clock, on the GPU clock, as well as a 240 megahertz boost on the memory clock, and we'll just key those in and apply them. And as you see, that brings you up to a base of 1118 with a boost of 1170, memory clock up to 6248. Down here you've got the fan speed. You can also go into your fan settings, change over to manual, and set up your fan curve the way you like it. Or simply leave it back at auto. Now, core voltage, you've got minimum, enable over voltage, and maximum of 1.163. Now, we did enable over voltage. However, we left it at the minimum. And our targets, you can link or unlink. So as you raise your power target, your GPU target temp will go up as well. You can also prioritize the GPU temp, or you can unlink them and adjust them individually. On the power, we did set that up to 112 in order to obtain this overclock. And we'll simply apply that. Down the bottom, you've got your resolution readout, as well as an on-screen display hotkey, which you can bring up to make adjustments when you're in-game or whatnot. Now, this will be your Profile 1, so once you've applied it, if you go over to Profile 2 and make changes there, as you see everything goes back to default, you go back to Profile 1, all your settings are still there. So you do have 5 profiles to work with. So now you see what we've boosted it up to. So now let's take a look at exactly what that does. Now I've brought up the Imogen Valley benchmark, and as you can see with it running, our GPU is going to stay pinned at 1254 on the boost clock, so it's running very quickly. As you can see, we got a really nice substantial boost from the overclock. It does say 1170, but it runs at 1254 without a problem, no throttling whatsoever. Memory at 6242, the voltage stays fine at 1.15, and as you'll see, the GPU clock just flatlines at 1254. There's absolutely no throttling at all. Temperature right now is at 64. It will get up to about 72 degrees if we let it run all day, and the fan will come up, but no issues with noise or with temperature at all. So now let's take a look at what the overclock does for the numbers themselves. Now, getting a look at the card inside the case, the Gigabyte GTX 780 GHz Edition is a good-looking card, very authoritative-looking card. Definitely looks like it means business. Very well put together, very solid. As you see, the backplate also adds a really nice touch. It's a clean-looking card in the case. You've got the GHz Edition emblazoned right across the side, all metal. Like I say, it looks like it means business. Not a card you're going to want to cover up. Definitely something you'd want to show off. Now, also, the backplate, besides making it look really nice, is definitely working. Very sturdy card in the case. No sagging whatsoever. So no chance of microfracturing down the road is caused by sagging. So you've got a really, really well-made card that looks good in the case. Now, going back to the performance. I mean, there's no question. $519 right now, nothing performs like this card. Period, end of conversation. Doesn't matter if it's from AMD, doesn't matter if it's from nVidia. At that price point right now, the Gigabyte GTX 780 GHz Edition is the fastest card out there. Now, you're going to see some skewing, of course, with the price points. People are going to say, oh, well, it should be 290X. That was supposed to be, but we can't go by what was supposed to be because it didn't happen. The 290X is not a $519 card. Right now, people are paying between $800 and $900 for them. Now, we did compare the 290, which is also going for substantially more than the GTX 780 GHz Edition, and it was faster. The GTX 780 GHz Edition was significantly faster than the Sapphire Overclocked 290. So you've got it right there. Now, right now, if you have $500 spent on a card, it's this or the 280X. Obviously, this is going to be your choice. I mean, there's no comparison there whatsoever. So you've got the fastest card at that price point, really well made, really good looking card. The overclock on the card, not a problem whatsoever. We got another 98 megahertz out of it, which also produced some really nice performance boost. So really the card's got it all going for it. One downside, the Gigabyte OC Guru 2, not a great program. It works, it's functional. Personally, I'd much prefer Afterburner or EVGA's Precision X. They work perfectly with this card, so you're covered there. So really an all-around fantastic package from Gigabyte. And right now, what is the fastest card you can buy in the $500 range, the Gigabyte GTX 780 GHz Edition, which is going to be a High Tech Legion Editor's Choice Award winner.